Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. I got junk all over me already. So just gonna do a quick video comparing these two bikes that I've been riding all summer. Combined, they've got 1,200 miles on them or so in the last few months, since May. And let's take a look. So I've got the bikes here. One is, well, they're the same, but they're different. So two gravel bikes here. One is the Trek Checkpoint ALR5, the aluminum. This is the Gen 2. So this is the older frame. The newer frame came out basically right after I bought this one. So I was a little bit upset about that, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then we've got the carbon. This is the entry level into carbon. This is the SL5. So this is the lowest spec carbon, Gen 3. And this is in a size small, which measures to a traditional size of 52. As you can see here, 500 series, carbon, blah, 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 checkpoint. So I got a smaller frame than what I'm sized for. This is the 54. This is what I'm supposed to ride, and I thought that maybe this was a little bit too big. That's why I got this one, to kind of decide which one I want to go with. And I've pretty much made my decision. As you can tell, one of them has pedals and one of them doesn't. This one I'm probably going to get rid of because I don't know if I'm a carbon guy. It's nice and everything, but the constant anxiety of like, oh my God, is my frame cracked? Or, you know, if I tip over or if it falls over while leaning, you know, is it gonna take on some damage? You know, so it's been kind of that back of mind thing for me, that take it easy on this bike. It's my first, you know, interaction with carbon to this extent. You know, I've had carbon forks and other smaller pieces, but a full carbon frame, I don't know. So I've decided on the ALR. I like it, it's good enough, it fits me. It has kind of the road look to it versus this one, which is a little bit more sharp edges. It's more straight. This one's a little bit more curvy, kind of like the curvy look on this bike versus this one. But it wasn't always like that. So I got this one back in May, and I was in probably a week later or so to ask them if they had any of these plugs. These are mine. I bought these after the fact, but they said no, they don't have them. They did sell me some wolf tooth bits and bobs, which I'm gonna keep over here on this when I get rid of it, just because I don't want to deal with swapping it back over. I did have it on this one originally, but all these little holes, all these frame mounts on here had little rubber things that you see here in the fork. The fork ones seem to stay in. All the ones on the frame fall out very easily. So within a week of riding, probably not even a week, you know, I was missing a bunch of those, and I had a bunch of holes, and I asked the guys like, hey, do you have these on hand? And they said no. And that's when I was in the store and I saw the Gen 3 aluminum checkpoint, which had the same build geometry as the carbon. So the only thing different, it was obviously it's an aluminum frame. It doesn't have the ISO speed, it doesn't have the in-frame storage, but it looks very similar as far as geometry and the shaping of the tubes and everything like that. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. You know, I just bought this one, and you have a newer version for the same price. So the only difference was, as far as I could tell, is just the frame. All the components were all the same, so you're still getting the SRAM apex, manual or mechanical group set. The disc brakes are the same, the drivetrain is all the same. The only thing different is the frame. So I was like, whatever. And then, you know, I just continued on riding. I've put over 700 miles on this bike. Hi. All right, I had to cut there for a sec. I kind of lost my train of thought. Max came out. I knew that was going to happen. So anyway, I got this bike because I wanted to try out the different sizes. I got in my own head like, hey, this bike's too big for me, because I'm in the groups, I'm seeing the comments and the chatter. So it was like, maybe the bike is too big for me. I was getting, kind of some arm fatigue, and, my saddle height was bothering me. I got it dialed in as best as I could. I was like, maybe the bike's a little bit too big. So instead of getting a 52 in this same frame, I knew that the geometry was a little bit more relaxed on this new gen geometry, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna get another one, might as well try out the carbon. So I went ahead and I had to drive about, I don't know, 120 miles round trip, because I had to drive up to Dayton, Ohio to pick this up. It's the only shop in within 100 miles that had the small version. Everywhere else close by had the medium or the medium large or the bigger sizes. I did sit on a medium here locally, and it felt too high. The standover, which isn't important, but it is in a way, right? So like, I want to feel comfortable on the bike. So I went ahead and, long story long, I pulled the trigger on this bike. Rode this one. I have probably 500 and some miles on it since I got it in July. And I've just, I can't justify keeping both. They both kind of have a different use case, but not really, not for me anyway. I need something that's all arounder, and I do have the Ozark Trail, right? The G1 Explorer. This one, amazing, right? But I want something different. This one I also felt was too big for me. I think that I've since kind of fixed that. Shorter stem, high-rise stem, seat, whatever, fix that. It works. But I want something with a little more. I'm a fanboy. I'll go ahead and I'll just say it. I'm a Trek fanboy. I love the Trek bikes. I like what they stand for. Customer service, top notch, lifetime warranty. You ever have an issue? If you ever have an issue, like anything, they'll take care of you. Now, more on that in a minute, because I'm kind of sour with these last two purchases. So like I said, the aluminum, they came out next week. They had the new models on the floor, and I'm like, what's this? And the guy's like, oh, that's the new model. That's the new Gen 3 ALR. And it was in this like green color, dark green color. I was like, what? I just got mine. But I do like this color. This is the plasma gray pearl. It has purple, has gray, has blue. It's just a great colorway. I really like this paint scheme, so I'm not too upset. I really do like this bike, and it's perfectly fine. So a similar situation happened on this one, right? So I drove pretty far for me. I don't like to drive, down the street to the grocery store, let alone driving across the Ohio River and deep up into Dayton. So I went up there. I've made it before they closed. I think the shop closed at 6 or 7. I got off work. I made it up there by like 6:30. So they probably closed at 7 that day. It was a Friday. They might have been open a little later. I don't know. But I feel like I was cutting it close, and I told the guy, I'm like, I want to look at your checkpoint, aluminum, size small. He showed me them. He was kind of like, he was kind of hesitant, and obviously they were about to close, or they were pretty close to closing time. He probably didn't want to deal with somebody who was going to ask him 5,000 questions, ask him for a test ride, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I rode it in the parking lot. I was, pretty dead set that I was going to take this home today. So I told the guy, after I rode it for 5-10 minutes in the parking lot, yep, I'm going to take it. I asked him to check the tube or the tires for sealant. He was kind of annoyed by that. And I said, hey, they don't come tubeless ready. Like, the shop puts them together. I believe the little bottles come in the box, and then the shop puts it in, and then they set it on the floor, and it just sits for however long. Who knows? When I had my Roscoe, I had bought that bike, and I took it home, and the tires were lopsided. Like, when you would stand it in the stand, they would spin, and they would go like this. The sealant was dried up in both front and the rear. So I had to go out, and I had to clean it, install sealant, and it wasn't a big deal because, you know, I understand that that's what happens. But the bikes sit there not being tested or moved or whatever, that dry up. And that's what happened here. And I told the guy, I said, you know, I'm gonna take it home, but I want you to check the sealant. And he was like all flustered. He's like, well, they're set up tubeless. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I've been burned by having to go out and buy more sealant because it's dried up when I get home. So he checked it with his little dipstick. Couldn't find any, you know, thing on the little thing that he stuck in there. He had the little muck off kit. He's like, well, probably all dried up in there. And all I really wanted him to do was break the bead and just show me that the sealant was in there and it was good enough. But he's dipping his thing in there and he couldn't find anything. And he's like, yep, it must be dried up. So he went ahead and I told him, I said, can you add some sealant? He's like, yeah, but it's not gonna be until like next week. I'm like, dude, no, I just drove 65 miles to come pick this bike up. Can you just throw in some sealant? So he hooked me up. He threw these in for no charge, $4.99. I still have them. And the reason why I didn't fill these up with this is because I actually did break the bead on the tires to kind of see what was going on in there. And there's enough sealant in there. But it's the point that, hey, these could have been dried up in there and I wouldn't have known. And potentially going out on a longer ride, because that's what I've been doing this summer. Longer rides, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 mile rides, 2, 3, 4 hours at a time. If I'm not gonna trust that the sealant's good, or if I'm gonna trust it and it ends up not being, you know, that sucks. So that's kind of the quick little update here. Just wanted to post a quick video, kind of capture this before winter or spring or fall, whatever. Before fall actually sets in and gets cold, I'm gonna be out here cleaning up these bikes. I did swap over the tires back because I had those wheels that came with it on that bike and that tire on that bike, the wheels. And they're different. This one's, I don't know what the difference is, but these are Paradigm SLs, so maybe a slightly better hub. These are just the Paradigm regulars, but whatever. I have obviously a lot more miles on these tires because they're pretty much a slick in the middle. That one has 750 miles, and this one is still got a little bit of texture there on the middle after about 500 miles. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.